Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. Different people have different definitions for what constitutes a modern classic. But as far as I'm concerned, I would put a book into this category if, one, if it was a five-star read for me, so one of my favorites. Two, if I think it will stand the test of time and it's still relevant today. And three, if I say so, because it's my video, so I make the rules. So these are 5 books published in the decade between 2000 and 2010 by British authors that you must still read today. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Kathy, Tommy, and Ruth are 3 teenagers like any other who live and study in this boarding school in England. But pretty soon in the story, we realize that something about this environment and these characters is a bit off. And there might be something happening that is not really evident at first sight. But you'll have to trust me on this because the less you know about the story, the more blind you are going into this book, I think the more enjoyable it is. It's a slow and somber book, which might not necessarily appeal to someone who likes their stories to be full of action and twists and turns. However, Ishiguro's beautiful writing really carries this story about what it means to be human and about the strength of friendship and the relationships that bind us together. It's a not dystopia, but it's really close to our own world, maybe too close for comfort. And it's a really beautiful, touching and sad tale that I would really recommend. Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. This is a very tricky book to describe because it's very unique and very ambitious and epic in scope, but also very different from anything I've read before. These are 6 different stories that are very different from each other in style, in tone, and they're even set in different time periods. And the book overall is how everything is interconnected. You might have heard of the butterfly effect before. And also about human nature, how human beings are capable of being heartless predators, but also capable of unconditional love. The prose really varies dramatically depending on which story you're reading. And some of them, a couple of them, are really, really challenging to get through because of the writing style. I even considered DNFing this because there were moments that I was really not enjoying this as an experience. However, if you do manage to pull through, it's one of those that is really likely to stay with you for a long time after you've finished. This book is genre defying. It's historical fiction, it's literary fiction, it's dystopia, it's sci-fi, all in one book. It's just amazing. We need to talk about Kevin by Lana Shriver. Okay, so let's get the elephant out of the room. Shriver is American. So what is she doing on this list? Well, she's lived in the UK for a long time. She lives down the road from where I live, so she makes the list. My video, my rules. We need to talk about Kevin is a series of letters that Ava writes to her husband, Franklin. And we gradually find out more about herself, who's a reluctant mother, as well as her family, and in particular, her son, Kevin, who is not quite your typical child/teenager. And again, we pretty soon find out that he's capable of some pretty horrific stuff. Some people really dislike this novel, and that's typically because they either hate Ava as a character because she's got these pretty controversial opinions, or because she's just unlikable, really, or because they find the book quite overwritten and a bit pretentious. However, in my opinion, this masterfully executed analysis around the theme of nature versus nurture and why some children grow up in a certain way and their siblings growing up in the same environment are very, very different. And also around the expectations that society places on women and how everybody expects mothers and women generally to be very motherly and have this innate instinct towards motherhood. And this has so many layers to unpeel and so many issues and themes to argue about for days that I think it's a really amazing book. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. Christopher is 15 years old, but he's not like all other teenagers. He knows all the prime numbers, but he also hates being touched. And then one day, the dog of one of his neighbors is killed, and Christopher really decides he needs to find out what happened. While the mystery element of the book remains relatively minor, the portrait of this autistic 15-year-old is really endearing and really touching. It's a book that will challenge you to look at things through his eyes and trying to take this completely different perspective on the world. But at the same time, you also find yourself sympathizing with the people around Christopher who have to learn to live with him and deal with his quirks. It's a book that will make you laugh and will make you cry, and it's incredibly enjoyable and incredibly original. Atonement by Ian McEwan. Bryony is a 13-year-old girl who lives in her family mansion in England. And one day she witnesses some sort of flirting between her sister and one of the boys who works in this house, who's the son of one of the servants. And she's at that age where she's struggling to make sense of these adult feelings that she's experiencing. And this circumstances lead her to take some questionable actions that have pretty dramatic consequences on the people around her. It's a book about how we learn to live with the decisions that we take and about the mechanisms that we build for ourselves to shield ourselves and atone for the mistakes that we make. McEwan's writing is an absolute delight to read. And this is technically historical fiction because it's mostly set in the 30s and 40s. However, the ending is actually set in present day. And the ending is absolutely breathtaking and it's something that will really stay with you for a long time. I hope you guys liked this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Do join our Discord. We're a very friendly bunch. There's a lot of very interesting conversations happening. So you're missing out if you don't. And I'll see you the next time.